Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Limitless Show. Today, my guest and I will be talking about confidence, how to gain it, how to find it, and everything like that. So if you're interested or want to know more about that, definitely listen up. I am so excited to introduce you to my new guest. We met recently when I was interviewed on her podcast. She held a podcast with two other amazing, inspiring hosts. So I'm so excited to introduce you to her. Her name is Amanda Van Annan. Thank you so much for being here, Amanda.
Hi, Emily. Thank you for inviting me on your show. And I'm really excited to be here as well because I've watched a few of your episodes and I like what you do. And I'm so excited to, be part of this.
So for anyone who has never seen a Limitless show before, what happens is I bring a new guest on every single week and we talk about a limitation they've had in their life and how they've overcome it, in the hopes that if you're struggling with the same thing, what is said on this video, on this podcast, will help you too. Amanda and I would like to talk about confidence. So for my first question, Amanda, I'd love to chat to you and ask you, what was your life like when you didn't have confidence?
I mean, that's a very loaded question, but I will break the question into several parts. I feel like something we don't address a lot is the fact that I did have confidence once upon a time, but that confidence got broken down. So not everybody doesn't have confidence. I think we are all born into this world, for example, with confidence. I mean, probably I'd say 95% of people are. And one thing we have to realize is a lot of that is broken down as we grow older, either through trauma or experiences we've had. And then we start telling things to ourselves. We start talking to ourselves, telling ourselves stories because we believe that this will protect us. I was confident as a child, I would say. I thought the world was, limitless, like you'd say. I thought I could do anything. But then, growing up and getting into the real world, especially into the world of modeling, that's where my confidence started getting chipped away. And, when we talk about confidence being chipped away, it was chipped away not only by, the industry itself, but when we talk about the bookers, who are people that work in the agencies, they're like the people that are booking the models. I mean, they're much older than you and you're a teenager, and the way they talk to you and the things they tell you, like, oh, you go lose weight, you need to get thinner thighs, you're too tall, you're too this, you're too that, you're too fat, you're too skinny. Basically, a lot of them were confidence breakers because you're a teenager, you've gone into a career, you've never even worked in your life, and you're like thinking, I'm not good enough for this. Yet on the same hand, whenever you'd book a job or something, they'll be like, oh my God, that's fabulous. So they'll break you down, then they'll build you up. And slowly that chipped away. And then what happens when you have a group of girls or guys that are being chipped, that their confidence is being chipped away, they turn into the perpetrator. So you find that in the industry, you get a lot of models because of that. They become bitchy, they become jealous, they start spreading gossip about others. You start to learn how to protect yourself because you're trying to if it's gossip, you're like, oh my God, I don't want gossip spread about me, so I'm not going to talk so much. It's chipping out your confidence, right? Because every time, you're not being yourself. You're like censoring yourself from talking. And slowly you start building all these new habits that were not there originally. And so I would say, probably even when I started modeling with all the confidence breakers, I was still confident, but then all of a sudden, everything, it was just like a battle, So I was never, on a scale to 1 to 100, I was about 50% all the time, where I feel you have to be showing your best self. You have to have your best possible self. Fortunately, we live in a time now where people can be the best person or the best self they can represent out there. But in those times, it was always like YouTube wasn't around, technology wasn't as good now. You couldn't go out and have a voice. So your voice had to be tamed by others. And having your voice tamed by others resulted in you losing your confidence. So I would say, probably my early 20s, or late teens when I was modeling was the first time I really started realizing that, because there were so many things I wanted to do that I would just be like, I wish I could do that, but I wouldn't, because something will be holding me back. Yeah.
Everyone is really born with this kind of confidence to be themselves. Like when you're a baby, if you want something, you cry for it, don't you? Like you're confident enough to say, I'm hungry, or I'm tired, or my nappy needs changing. But it's kind of things around us really chip at us and just keep on like chipping and chipping and chipping until you kind of lose that confidence. And I think a lot of people go through that. It's incredible how many people are losing confidence. What I want to ask you now is, how is your life different now you have a bit more confidence and you've gained that confidence?
Emily, I think that's a very, very interesting question to ask. But I'd also like to say, to anyone listening to this, the process of building confidence is a life journey. It's a life process, and I think to be our true authentic selves is a battle between good and evil inside ourselves, and fighting with the darker forces of, just like procrastination and I'm not good enough and what are people going to say about me? So a lot of that you have to fight with yourself constantly. So it's a constant battle. And I feel like my life has changed a lot now, even though there are moments when I would think, oh my God, like, what's that person going to say? And then I have to remind myself that, do I really care what they say? And I remember a friend of mine used to say, she'd say, as long as they don't pay your rent, why do you care? Like, it's not like they're going to come to your bedside if you fall ill. You don't even know these people. But I feel like it's society that kind of pushes us into the box. You have confidence builders as well as confidence breakers. And unfortunately, a lot of parents act as confidence breakers because rather than letting their kids be their true authentic selves, they start, stopping them or putting their
mold them and put their kind of influence on them.
So yeah, going back to your question, sorry, I was going away there, but going back to your question, really, I think I started the difference with my life now from then is that I approach things in a more different way. I look at something, and even when I get that little feeling of being aware, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? I kind of look at it like a balloon blowing up, and then I punch a needle in it, and I think, listen, whatever happens, these people can't control your life. But, and once you start to realize that, a lot of things change. And even if you end up losing friends or maybe some family members that are not the right fit for you, it doesn't matter, because you will attract, as we know from the law of attraction, you will attract those that are supposed to be in your life, and your life will become a lot more fulfilled.
It is difficult to be your true authentic self because you're afraid that you will lose people in the process. But what Rachel Hollis says, and is a great quote, is don't let people in the cheap seats have an expensive opinion on your life. So what I want to ask you, and you've already kind of explained it and said it, because I want to go through why people may lack confidence. And from what I'm hearing from you is the reason you lacked confidence is because of those people chipping away at you. Was that the main reason why you think your confidence was slowly stripped back, or is there other reasons why you may have lacked confidence? Because what I want to do is I've got a list of reasons why I think people may lose confidence, and I just want to talk through them and maybe give advice to those different scenarios just to help a range of people.
So I would say one of the main reasons I lacked confidence was mostly because of the chipping away. But also I want people to understand that because in this world, perception, so we look at people and we think they're confident, and even though they may not be, or they may be shy, so we think they're snobbish, and they're not snobbish, or whatever it is. But what we have to realize is, going back to your question, so the chipping away was a big part of it, but you have to realize that when people get chipped away at and all that happens and you lose confidence, sometimes the reason people want you to lose confidence is because they actually feel that you are confident and they're not confident themselves. So what they do is, you come in like this big shining light and they're like, oh God, I've got to dim it. So they try whatever they can to chip away at you, to dim your light. And it's up to you to either shine brighter, or you allow them to dim the light, switch off the light switch. I'm sure we'll talk about that later, because I wanted to say, and until you find a process, or you're seeing a therapist or a life coach or somebody, or you're using a spiritual process or meditate or something like that, until you find a process for yourself, it will keep on happening. Because also the way the law of attraction works and the law of cause and effect, every time you feel like that, you attract an equal and opposite reaction. It's like a perpetual thing. So, you dim your light, you go to the next place, The next person dims your light some more. You go to the next place, next person dims your light some more. And then the moment you shine your light, half of them disappear because your light is too strong.
I love that.
You know, and they're not the people that are meant to be in your life. If you are a confident person, someone that's really confident, you can attract other confident people. Being confident doesn't mean you have to go out there screaming like I'm confident, and you know, but it's being self-assured and believing in yourself.
Confident in who you are and what your values are and what you stand for. So I would love to just talk about really quickly, how did you shine brighter? What did you tell yourself? How did you shine brighter?
Emily, that's a very good question, in fact, because I think shining brighter is a constant process. So one of the first things I did was I embraced spirituality. That helped me a lot in my journey. You know, I remember growing up as a Christian, but I decided to look into Buddhism. And so I would chant daily. I'll do these meditations and chant. That kind of built, you know, an inner confidence. And there's a saying in Buddhism, and it says, the lotus flower blooms in murky waters. And every time I just remember that phrase, you know, I'll say the lotus flower blooms in murky waters, because it's telling you that the lotus flower is so beautiful, but the underneath is that murky, murky water. So out of this murky water comes the most beautiful thing. So I feel a lot of times, because we are human, when your confidence is being broken down, I mean, you're not a piece of wood. You are going to get sad. You are going to feel lonely. You are going to feel like, oh my God, they hate me. Those are natural emotions. If I told you that I don't feel those today, I'm lying to you, because we are human. We're meant to feel, and feeling is important. But as I said, it's finding tools. So I use meditation. I use spirituality. I've read a lot of books. Reading helps a lot. Unfortunately, people don't read as much as they should these days. But as you know yourself, when you read these books, it's like they're magical. You actually almost get drawn into them, because it's almost like they take you somewhere else. So I used reading, yeah.
So I've got a little list here of why I think people may lose confidence. And if you have any others, you can give a scenario too. But the first one is, people may lack confidence because they're scared of other people's opinions. What would you say to the person who is living that way?
People lack confidence because they're scared of others' opinions. Now, that's a big one, because, you know, when we think of the world and the way we live today, social media is all about other people's opinions. So people will go to the extent of creating images on social media just to make people like them. Now, it gives you a dose of dopamine or whatever every time someone puts a like or something. A lot of times we're scared of what other people will say, because maybe somewhere inside us, sometimes we know it's true, or sometimes we just don't want people to say negative things about us because it doesn't make us feel good. But it's being comfortable in that feeling, right? Like, these people are saying negative things. It's not who I am. So why should I care? It's like if I said to you, Emily, if I was trolling you, for example, and I said, oh, you're a dog. You know, you're not a dog. You're a human being. So why should it really bother you if I go around telling everybody you're a dog? But it's part of that thing as humans that we want people to like us. We want people to like us. And when people don't like us, it doesn't make us feel good. So it's about the feeling, isn't it? Yeah, so people don't say what they need to say because they don't want to feel that feeling, because that unfamiliar feeling of not feeling good. They feel like, oh, if that person does that, it's not going to make me feel good. But you have to be ready to sometimes not feel good if you want to overcome, you know, and be confident.
I've had that situation before where someone said something that wasn't necessarily nice about me to my face. And I was a bit annoyed, but then I thought, well, actually, I know I'm not this, so I don't need to be annoyed, because I know myself that I'm not that thing. But the thing that may scare people is that maybe that will be spread around. But then you've got to remember that the people who are close to you know who you are. Your friends know who you are. Your family know who you are. And if you know who you are and they know who you are, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, does it really? And the next one is, they lack confidence because they've never tested themselves. They've never done it before.
Okay, for example, that is a normal fear, you know, fear of the unknown. That's also a human feeling. Like, a lot of times when someone tells you, I've got to tell you something, the first thing you think is, what have they got to tell me? And you start thinking of all this bad stuff that might come out of their mouth, even if it's good news. So I think as humans, we have this innate flight or fight thing. So when we're going into a situation that's unfamiliar, the first thing we think about is, what are people going to say? It's the same thing when people do public speaking and they shrivel. So you're up there trying to talk to an audience, and all you're thinking is, oh my God, that one's looking at my fat ankles. That one's looking at my thighs. Oh, that one's probably saying, oh my God, she's too tall. You start to build all these scenarios in your head where if you come up and show up as your true authentic self, no one's going to see any of that. They'll be too enthralled in you to see anything else going on around you. So I think when you're going into these type of situations, maybe do some affirmations before you go in, try and meditate, relax. Relaxation helps a lot. I also do something which I call a building block. Just think of the worst thing anyone could say, the worst, like the real crappiest thing. And then what I do is you then break it down. You then say, okay, so I go in there and she calls me a bitch. Okay. She tells 10 people I'm a bitch. They all start talking, I'm a bitch. What is that going to do in my life? Is that going to change anything in my life? Fortunately, today we live in a world today, thank God, where people, they've kind of seen it all and people don't really get to. They're like, oh yeah, whatever. Where I think in the past it was even worse because you live in a small town, someone starts spreading a rumor, it destroys your whole life. Like people stop working with you, people don't want to talk to you. And even that I find quite weird, because if someone tells me someone's a bitch, unless they know them really well, and if I haven't experienced that, why should I care? So I think a lot of times if you're going to do anything you haven't done before, just brace yourself, put on your armor, get your spear ready, and get out and fight. It's, shine your light as bright as possible and just keep on thinking that. And if you have affirmations, you say to yourself, I'm enough, I'm proud, I'm beautiful, I'm gracious, I am here to stay. I am, there's so many things you can say to yourself, and you just got to embolden yourself and go out there and do it. But that said, I do know that it's not as easy as that, because that's probably for the average person. Then there are people that have all sorts of other issues, like bad back trauma from childhood, and that may be difficult. And if you're someone like that, you need help. You need to see a therapist. You need to see a life coach. You need to see someone that you can talk to that can help you build towards your confidence.
Brilliant advice. Thank you so much. What about, so these are kind of like, I think these are kind of more confidence as in doing things rather than confidence in themselves, but it's still to do with confidence. So what about people who have done something before, but it didn't work?
Well, that's a big one, because I think as we grow older, we realize that there's going to be a lot of things in life we do that are not going to work, like a lot. You just have to brace yourself. You have to think positive. So positive thinking is the core of all this, because the core of all this confidence thing is positivity, right? Because if you're a positive person, you wouldn't, not that you don't think of bad thoughts, but you have less bad thoughts or negative thoughts. So the first thing is, if you've done something before that didn't work the first time, you have to try again, but build a different story for yourself the second time you try. So let's say, I'll give an example. Let's say I tried to build a business, and the business was, let's say, selling baby clothes. And the first time I tried it, let's say, for example, I had a store, it went bankrupt, and the whole thing went upside down. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I'll never do that again. And then let's say 3 years later, an opportunity comes and they're like, oh my God, we've got this most amazing baby clothes, you should have a store. And I'm thinking, no, I can't do this again. I can't do this to my family. I can't do this to myself. You're probably right. But if you feel like it's an opportunity, what you should really be looking at is the mistakes you made the last time, so you don't repeat them. Because in your story, there will be mistakes. Maybe this time you might decide to go online first rather than have a store, because it'll be cheaper for your budget, or you might decide to do it a different way. Doing something again doesn't mean doing the same thing the same way. Sometimes it involves doing things totally different.
Yeah, no, I completely agree there. Last one, let's do this one. Just because they don't believe in themselves. They lack confidence because they don't believe in themselves.
Oh yeah, so that's like the one we did before. But when you don't believe in yourself, a lot of the reasons you don't believe in yourself come from, as we said before, they stem mostly from experiences. Because I think we're all born innately. I've never met a baby that doesn't run around, 2-year-old or 3-year-old or 4-year-old or 5-year-old from a very good, like from a loving family that isn't, like just out there. But the first signs, especially with child abuse, the first signs you notice, and what psychologists do, is you start seeing the children behave different. When they're being abused, they withdraw, So I feel like when you talk about people that don't believe in themselves, there's all sorts of levels in it. It depends what they've been through in life and how they can overcome that. And, working with several charities, I've met kids that have been through horrible situations, horrendous, of physical and sexual abuse. And, just them having to come to terms with that and going out into the world and being confident. Some are, but it's tough. It's really tough. So, when it comes to personal confidence, you have to know where you are at. If you need help, seek help. Yeah. Mental health is one of the most important untalked about issues that people don't realize, because a lot of things affect us mentally, but we just don't think they are, because we don't really monitor our thoughts that much. So even though this is happening, you're like, oh, it's just I just feel like that. But really, when you start monitoring your thoughts and you realize that it's so important for people to check out their mental health, because if something's going wrong mentally, it can affect your whole life. And now for the average person that just lacks confidence, I'm going to give you some real hardcore tips. Number one, if you lack confidence because your group of friends or family are not making you feel confident, you got to stand up for yourself. And how do you do that? First thing, don't hang around people that don't make you feel good about yourself. If they're not making you feel good about yourself, don't hang around them. I know cutting the cord can sometimes be hard, but you've got to let them go. Because if something's not making you feel good, it's probably harming you, like psychologically. So you've got to let them go. And then you've slowly got to build your own story, and then try and find new friends and a new crew or new people. And even that alone will be a message to yourself, telling you that you are not the person that those people told you you are. Because, hey, look at me. I've got all these friends that love me. Secondly, if your confidence is being broken down by, let's say, a boss or something, you've got to literally, especially in today's world, journal everything that's happening, and then talk to yourself. And eventually, speak to HR, speak to the boss, speak to whoever, or leave the job. Those are the drastic things you've got to do for your own confidence. If your confidence has to do with things that have happened in childhood, as I mentioned earlier, see a therapist. If your lack of confidence is coming just from your situation or your environment or money or all those things. On that note, let's talk about money, because I know money is something that really is a thing that a lot of people just feel they're not confident enough, not to make money, but they just feel like, I don't have money, nothing's going to become of my life. I'm one of the ones that are going to be there just working, and it can sometimes make them just feel anxious and bitter. But, if your problem is money or something like that, I would say your first step is get a lot of books, read a lot, read about biographies of people who made money, read about how to manage money, learn about spirituality and attracting money. Change your life. If you believe in the law of attraction, as within, so without. So as you start to change within, you'll start to attract different things without. But also as you start to go without yourself and changing your environment, things will change. You know what I mean? It's our environment. So if you don't feel good, if you feel like you're living in an environment that is toxic, you need to move out of that environment. You have to realize your determination to change has to be 100%. You have to know the life you want to live. And when you know the life you want to live, you have to find that confidence to get out of that situation. Even though you're not 100%, you get out of that situation and you build your blocks. I feel like the journey to becoming self-confident, a lot of it is about you deciding to be confident. The moment you make a decision inside of you, that's the moment the whole universe starts to support you to find your confidence. But you have to be willing to be part of that journey.
I love that. It's also what I've come to realize, even just doing this, chatting to you, there's so many different reasons why people would lack confidence, and there's so many different places in your life that you can lack confidence. As you were saying with journaling, it's really important to know what area of your life you're lacking confidence. Is it money? Is it body image? Is it your work? Is it your relationships? Because there's so many different areas that you can lack. And if you don't know where you're lacking confidence, and you're bound to be lacking more in one area than the others, so you really need to figure out where you can put more confidence into. But you can't do that without first realizing where I'm lacking. So journaling is definitely something that I would highly suggest as well. What I want to ask you now is, what would you say to your past self who was lacking confidence?
Oh, well, that's, well, one thing I'd say to my past self who was lacking confidence is, girl, you got it all. You survived today, you made another day, and where are those bitches now? Sorry, I had to using that type of language. But the thing about it is, when you look back at life and a lot of things that happened to you, and those people, or those people that made you feel bad, or those people that thought you'll never make it, or those people that thought nothing will become of you, or those people that you thought this. If you decide and change your life to achieve what you want and become a more confident person, sometimes you look back and they become nothing. They've not achieved the things they wanted. But you see, that's the reason they wanted to stop you in the first place. It's about like the light I was talking about. They've seen that you've got that light, you're shining, you're going, and they will do anything. And also, let's talk about this, because when I talk about people dimming your light doesn't mean that the person comes in, or they don't always come in this form like, oh, you don't look beautiful today. Oh, what are you wearing? No. Sometimes they come in the form of, oh, I don't feel good today. Because you see, people dim your light in different ways. It's not always like they say negative things. Some people come and start crying, or they'll say, oh, you always think you're like better than me, or you always think you're, they use reverse psychology, because maybe you're somebody that just, they realize is confident and you want to get things done in your life. And then all of a sudden they might be a friend of yours and you're trying to pull them along, like, come on, let's do this. And they're like, oh, you always think you're too good. Because their lack of confidence starts chipping away, and then they want to chip yours away. So you have to be careful. It's not always like someone comes in screaming at you. They could come in with tears, or they could, every time you want to do something, they always prevent you from doing it,
Yeah, I think it's really important to really keep your kindness and keep your chill. If someone else isn't kind, it doesn't mean that you don't have to be too. If someone else is saying something mean to you, it's difficult, it's really difficult, but you can just be like, okay, and then leave it. You don't have to get back at them. You don't have to have revenge. You don't have to be angry or put your point across, because a lot of people who are like that, they are not open-minded enough to actually hear reason or hear your reason. So it's easier just to say, okay, and then just let it be, because it's nicer for you in the end run, really. But yeah, you have to really be careful. And I think all of this is just about being aware of your environment, being aware of people around you, being aware of your thoughts, being aware of everything. And for like a last thing, what would you say to someone who is lacking confidence in whatever area?
The first thing I would say to anyone is, when we think of the question itself, what is confidence? Like, what is confidence? Because, we might think we lack confidence, but what is confidence? Just because someone doesn't talk a lot, just because you don't talk a lot and you're a quiet person, doesn't mean that other people are not going to appreciate you being in a room. Just because you're not the most beautiful girl in the room doesn't mean you should feel bad, because guess what? There's a guy for every girl, and when you think about it, I tell people things like that. Like, I have friends that sometimes are not confident, and I give them examples. I'm like, listen, you're saying you're not as beautiful as her and you're never going to find a man. I'm like, look, the wealthiest men in the world are not married to the most beautiful women. There's a reason for that. Otherwise they would be, like, it doesn't mean you have to be the most beautiful woman to succeed. Or if you feel like you're not academically astute, it's fine. So the first thing I would say is, in the process of building your confidence is a journey, and it starts with little steps. And those steps, you're not going to burst out the door immediately and just go, oh my God, I'm so confident, everything's okay, because it could work for some, but you could be fooling yourself. So I would say your first step should be journal down the things that you think that are going through you think are not making you feel confident. Because we need to know that. You need to know that. Not we, but you need to know what you think is not making you feel confident. Is it your height? Is it your hair? Is it you feel too fat? Is it you feel too thin? Is it you feel black? Is it you feel, what is it? Write those things down, because it's only by writing them down you can identify them. Then once you identify them, how can you change them? Now, there's some things that you might not be able to change, because if you're short, you're short. If you're tall, you're tall. If you're white, you're white. If you're black, you're black, But if you can't change them, then reframe them. How can you reframe them? So let's talk about reframing. So if I feel like I'm not confident because I don't have all the designer clothes that everyone's wearing, what do designer clothes really count for? Because you don't have to wear designer clothes. You have to then look at, if you're not confident because you don't have designer clothes to wear, you have to look at what designer clothes mean to you. Do designer clothes equal confidence to you? Because if they do, then I've got news for you. They're still clothes, and then you can cut them and rip them and stuff. So that's where you can start identifying that, oh my God, really? Yeah. Why am I making clothes that important to me, that I'm losing my human experience just because of something materialistic. Or you might say, I don't feel confident because I don't have the right career. Well, if you don't, guess what? We're in a world today where we have online learning. Start learning and chase that new career. And yeah, you might not get to the top of that ladder as you want it, but on the way, you can create your own business. You can do other things. So I think the first point is identify. The second point is reframe the problem, reframe. And then the third thing is start your journey. So build your little ladder one step at a time. Okay, today I'm going to sign up for courses. Tomorrow I'm going to do that course. Next day I'm going to go and watch a public speaker. Next day I'm going to email this person. Even if I don't get a reply, I'm going to email them again. And because we're humans, and what happens to us is anything we do a lot becomes normal, right? Yeah. So if we keep on doing something, it becomes part of our norm. So sooner or later, you're just like, oh, I've done 100 emails. They didn't reply, but whatever, I'm doing 101. So as I said, you need to pinpoint it, you need to reframe it, and you need to take baby steps. There's so many books out there, so many self-help guides, so many podcasts, so many things. And it's a question of just listening to these things and taking action. If you don't take action, no one can take action for you.
It's realizing that you want that confidence and then building it. Confidence isn't a personality, and a lot of people think, oh, I'm not confident, so that's me, like that's my personality, when actually confidence is just a habit. The more you build on it, the more you make habits, the more you do things to be more confident, the more you'll build this habit, and you'll just be there being you, and it will feel normal, because like you said, the more you do things, the more normal it gets, the more normal it feels. But yeah, no, completely and utterly agree. Is there any last words that you would like to say on this topic?
Yeah, there was something interesting you said. You said, be there being you.
Yeah.
That's basically the crux of it. You have to just be you. Maybe when we're thinking of it, it's to be that person you were when you were 3 years old, or be that person you were when you were 1 year old, if you can remember that far. And, if it's not too traumatizing, get help if it's traumatizing. But if it's just basic confidence, just be yourself. Once you are yourself, people see through it and they like you. It's like, even when I watch YouTube videos, you have all these people on YouTube, and I find like the ones people watch the most are the ones that are so authentic, and they have nothing to do with, sometimes, they might not be confident, but they're telling you their story.
Yeah.
And human beings, we connect. There's a connection, a chord, an emotion that goes through us as human beings, how we just connect because we have empathy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because of empathy, when someone tells you their story, you're just like, that is amazing, So I think you just have to learn to be yourself, the self you were, your true authentic self, as they say. And that's part of your confidence. And if you don't feel good in one group, find your group, find your tribe, find the people that love you for who you are. And another thing I want to tell people is not everyone's going to love you. It's the way the world is. Not everyone's going to love you. People troll me all the time. I mean, I have trolls. I have to delete their messages, trolling. I don't care. You must realize how destructive and how unincentivized their lives are. You know what I mean? Like they have nothing to live for. Because for someone that to go online and just troll others must be going through a really, really bad experience. And they're definitely not confident. You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
So it's for you to build and to go beyond that. You cannot say, I'm not confident because someone's trolling me. Honey, I am being trolled and I am here, bold and out there. And you know what? I'm living my true authentic self. I'm living my life. And that's how it should be for everybody. You know what I'm saying? We should all always embellish who we are every day, because that's the us that needs to show up and be present. The other us you were told to be is not the you. This is the you, the one that can show up, be present, have empathy, connect, and be out there with people. So you can discover. And then, once you start doing that, you discover all these amazing treasures in yourself. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, what you were saying, hurt people really hurt people. And it's not a case of like, yes, it can hurt you too when they hurt you, but don't be angry at it. Feel sorry for them. Like, feel sorry for them, people who are being mean to you, because their life must be miserable to take time out and bash you and say horrible comments about you. And one of my favorite things you said from this podcast is, know what your version of confidence is. there's a different version of success to everyone. Success to me is happiness. Success to someone else might be lots of money. Success to someone else might be kids and a family and a home. And it's the same thing with confidence. Confidence for you might being able to go and speak to anyone you want to. Confidence for you might being making a YouTube channel or a podcast. Confidence for you can be completely different. But know what you want to be confident at and then go for it. And do them little habits. And I've loved that. I've never thought of that way. Everyone's confidence is different, like their version. What is your version of confidence? I'd like to know before we end this.
Oh, that's a good question. You snuck that question in. Well, I think my version of confidence is being my happiest self, living as my true authentic self, doing the things I like doing, which involves a lot of creativity, entertainment stuff, and helping others become confident really makes me happy. Helping others discover who they are makes me happy. I mean, that's my version of confidence. Having great friends and family and loved ones around me. Is money a part of my confidence? I don't really think so, because money is just a means to an end. Maybe for some people it makes them feel confident, but if I can pay my bills, I'm fine. It doesn't really matter. So confidence to me is just, being able to wake up in the morning and being alive and knowing that here I am today and I can go out there and put on my armor and go battle the battle that we do every day to live in this world, and just being able to do that and just having empathy for others, and in return receiving so much love from the great friends I have. It's all part of my confidence, and just that alone just makes me unbreakable. And that's where we're trying to get to, being unbreakable.
No, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And if anyone else has found Amanda inspiring, I will put all of her details in the description below. Definitely go check out her podcast, her Instagram, and everything I put in the description. But to everyone watching, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, then please make sure you press the like, subscribe, put a comment in the comments, and just let me know what you took away from this conversation. But I will see you next week with another episode. Thank you so much, Amanda. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Emily. Thanks for inviting me on your podcast.
No worries. Bye, everyone.